Hi, this is Professor Nick Sensky at UNC Charlotte, and this is the continuation of the Photoshop demos from week one. This is the material that we covered in lab Thursday, January 12th. And the first piece I want to start with is just talking about transforms. What I've done is I've already made a selection from another image, and I've copy pasted it into a new file just for the purposes of trying to demonstrate these. So if you look at it, it's just an object that's on top of a white background. Okay, so transforms are how we modify something that we've selected, and these would include moving things, changing the scale of it, and the width and the height, rotating it, skewing it, and any kind of way that we're transforming that like this kind of image. So right now I have the move tool selected, and that's pretty self-explanatory. We can move. If we hold down the shift key, we can move things, and we can restrict them to horizontal and vertical. So we can move them. It's kind of like an orthogonal snap. Okay. Another thing we can do is, when we have the move tool selected, is if you hold down the Alt key, your cursor will become sort of like a double arrow. You can take that double arrow, and when you move an object, you get a copy of it. It's going to make another copy on a separate layer, and you can make as many copies of things as you want. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. If I pick the top layer and I hold Shift and I select the last layer in this row, it's going to select all these at once, and then I can just trash all these. So that's kind of a trick. If I hold Shift while I'm alt copying, it's going to restrict movement to orthogonal, so I can copy these in a row or inside of a column. Okay. Again, shift click and delete. So that's just kind of a useful little trick when you want to make copies of things that you already have using the move tool. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about transforms now. You can access transforms if you have something selected. You go up to Edit, Transform, and there's a list of ones that you can use right from the panel, such as you can actually flip the image. Go ahead and undo that. You can flip it vertically. You can do a skew tool, which allows you to actually play with these handles here. You can get some forced perspective. You can shift it up and down. So go ahead and experiment with some of those. The other thing though is this free transform, and that's actually the one that we're going to be using more of. So you can do free transform by going to Edit, Free Transform, or you can do Control T. On Mac it's probably a little bit different, but Control T is kind of the hotkey, and this is really useful. We can move the object. We can, by pulling the handles, we can change the width scale of it. You can see that that's changing up at the top. So it says here like 172%. You can also type in what you want. So I can go back to 100 by typing it in. You can play with the vertical. By grabbing the edge on the corner here, you can actually play with both the vertical and the horizontal at the same time. If you hold down Shift, you can restrict them, and you can transform them both at the same time. So you'll essentially get it's going to scale the whole object in the same as the width and the height. Okay, and if you put the cursor on the edge up at the corner outside of the handles, so this is on the handle and then outside, you get a rotate icon. You can rotate the object. If you hold down Shift, you can restrict it to 15-degree rotation increments, which is useful. So I can flip it upside down like evenly if I want to, or 90 degrees, -90. So that comes in handy. So those are just the basic kind of transforms. It's good to know how to use the hotkeys for those things. If you want to actually get a specific number, you can type them in. You can type in a specific angle up here. So anyway, move, shift copy, or alt copy, scale, rotate. These are all the transforms. Okay. So that concludes this piece of it. The next piece, I'm going to talk about a method for another method for selecting stuff, for selecting complex objects. Okay, so this is part 2 of the video. We're going to be talking about a selection method for selecting compound or complex objects. And before I showed you some techniques, we looked at the like the regular sort of like polygonal lasso, a lasso tool, these kinds of selections, and we could add to selections by holding down Shift. And we could subtract by using the Alt key. Okay, and you could use that for making a selection of, say, like a person or a tree. You could kind of painstakingly kind of trace the object and do that sort of thing. But for really complicated objects, particularly ones that don't have really well-defined borders, that could really take you a long time. So what I'm going to show you is another method using kind of a masking method. And to do that, you need to start with some kind of image. In class, I talked about this website, thesartorialist.com, and it's a website. It has lots of images of kind of fancy-looking people, full-body shots, which are really suitable for if you want to make a scale image for your drawings. But you can find other sources of images online. So I kind of showed you that, and I had this picture of this sort of like jaunty Italian guy, and what I'm going to do is I have my image loaded. I'm going to go to channels, and before we created a channel by taking a selection and making a channel, here I'm just going to make a channel, make a new channel. Okay, so this icon here. Okay, and that blanks out the screen. If I turn back on RGB, you can see that channel is kind of an overlay. It's kind of a red film that's on top of it. Okay, so I want to make sure to turn these on. You want to click the icon for the eye here, and then make sure that you have the alpha channel selected. And then if you take the paintbrush tool and you use white and black, okay, white is going to erase, and that's going to what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a selection to grab parts of this image. So white erases and black. White erases and black is going to fill it back in. Okay, and if we do a control click, that's going to create a selection. Okay, so the idea is to get into the image and using the paintbrush tool and white and black, go in and paint out the areas that you want to keep. And this works really well with tablets and things. And you want to typically do a brush. If you go into your brush, here, you want a brush that's got kind of fine edges, that's got kind of fuzzy edges. That's going to give you a better transition with your figure and the background instead of a hard edge. And as you're painting, you can use the bracket keys, the left and right brackets, to increase and decrease the size of your brush. So you can do this as you're working with one hand on the keyboard. So I can go in and do kind of the fine details, in this guy's hand. And then I can increase the brush, and then I can kind of paint it away. Okay, so that kind of thing is really helpful, really quick. You can also, if it helps you, do things like take the polygonal lasso, and once you've kind of got the edges knocked out, make a selection. And then you can take the paintbrush, and then you can kind of safely paint white really quickly, so you don't have to be quite so careful. Okay, be careful of the edges of this, but that's kind of a way to do it pretty quickly. You could also do something like edit, fill. Okay, let me go back to that. So you can go to edit and fill, and then you can say fill it in with white, and that'll also just knock that out really, really quickly. Let's go ahead and do that actually. So edit, fill, white. So that just takes care of it. So that way, in case your brush strokes aren't very good or not, that'll kind of knock it out quickly. Okay. So you go ahead and do that and do the best you can. And one thing you can do too is you can certainly go in and with your zoom, and if you kind of overshoot it, right, you can take black and a small brush and fill back in those edges a little bit. And this is just another technique, but it might help you. It might be easier for you than because you don't have to keep holding down Shift to add to the selection. You're just kind of building a selection. And again, if you press the Control key and then you do like a mouse click on the thumbnail, it'll make a selection. Okay. Then you can use that to copy paste your figure into another file, or to just, if you do like a select invert, you can remove the background. Okay. You've got that figure. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video here while I get this figure cleaned up, and then I'm gonna show you a technique for removing more of the background elements, making sure that it's got a clean edge, and so that you can put it into your file a little bit easier. Okay, I'll be right back. Alright, so I got this figure basically cut out. A lot of work with the brush here. But I still got some areas here where there's a little kind of fine edge, and I could go in and really refine that, really kind of zoom that in. But I'm going to show you a technique to kind of clean that up, and also to help make the figure blend in with any background that you've got. Sometimes when we're doing these collages, it doesn't really matter if if it looks very real. But when we're trying to put a figure into a rendering or an image to make it look real, that edge is really important. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I've got my alpha selected. I'm going to hold down the Control key and then pick the thumbnail, and that'll give me the edge of my figure that I made. Then I'm going to go, I can go ahead and turn off that alpha, and I'm going to go ahead and click the RGB, so now I'm on this channel, and I got the background layer selected. I'm going to make a new layer, go to background layer. I'm going to copy paste my figure into a new layer. And as we can see, we got the figure on its own layer. Now, to check and see like how good of a job we did with the figure, what I can do is I can make a new layer, and I'm going to go into colors, and I'm going to pick a really awful color, like a bright green or a fuchsia or something. Pick the paint bucket tool and drop it, and now you can kind of see like there's some kind of, his foot's kind of fuzzy maybe, or maybe there's some white sticking out. Maybe the edges are a little like unrefined. So that might be something that I need to fix. So I might want to fix his foot, let's say. So another thing, actually I should say, you can do when you're on this layer is you can always zoom in, and using the erase tool, you can always erase stuff on the edges if you need to. Okay, it's much harder to add stuff though, so you might need to go back, and once you've kind of tested this thing, you might need to go back and refine things like that foot. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer, hide my green layer, and go back to the background, back to alpha, and let's just kind of clean this up just slightly. Turn off this grid here. I don't like that grid. There we go. Okay. So let's go back, and with my paintbrush, go ahead and paint in, make sure that I erased what I need, and then make sure that the edge is pretty crisp here. That's not too bad. Sometimes working on the alpha can be kind of helpful as well. Make sure I got it. Pure white selected here. Another thing too is make sure that your opacity is set to 100. That way you've got a good. You can also use a hard brush once you kind of know if you're going to be filling things in. It eliminates some of the fuzz you get from the airbrush tool. You can work directly on the mask. Like for instance, I've got some areas here that are definitely not the best. So. Getting a really clean mask is helpful. Yeah, so that hand isn't very clean. So again, I've got a white hard brush. I'm just kind of filling it in using the brackets. I'm going to do that. There. So clean mask, and that's what's nice is since the mask is kind of saved, it's pretty easy to make these kinds of changes. and that's not too bad. You don't need to make it absolutely perfect, but making it better can help. Okay, so I got the mask kind of cleaned up. Go ahead and select it. Go back to RGB. Okay, cut and paste again. Put that on top of the layer. And better. That foot's better, definitely. There's still some kind of art. There's still some kind of edges here. So again, I could go in with the eraser and just kind of knock some of that out. The really obvious stuff, right? That doesn't look very good. Now my eraser's not 100%. There we go. So could do some things. I could even go in and fix these glasses up a bit. Sometimes when you separate something from the image, you find out that you took more of the object than you really wanted. That seems to be the case with these glasses here. Clean up his hand. You don't have to do all this. Okay. So, you could do things like that with the erase tool. That's pretty good. So, might fix that up a bit more. So, I've got this object, and, again, the green helps me see. I could go in with the eraser, and I could really subtract, get excuse me, get really clean in there. But what I'm going to do, and again, this is a technique that helps you kind of clean the edges up. It also helps you when you're putting it on the background to make it kind of blend in better. So I've got the layer selected, and I hold down Control and click the thumbnail. And it's going to give me the outline, which is what we've seen with the channel, and then go into Select, and I want to say Inverse, and then I want to go Modify, Expand. I'm going to expand the border by 1 pixel, so you can see it's going to pull in a little bit. It's going to kind of encroach. Then I'm going to go into Select, Modify, Feather, and feather it by a pixel, and that's going to kind of create a gradient on the edge of the selection. Then if I press the delete key, you'll see it kind of shrunk it a bit. Notice how it just kind of eliminated some of the noise around the edges of it. Just kind of creates a smoother transition. That's the idea. Okay. You can still go in with the erase tool and kind of clean things up, but that's really gonna help make it look like that much better. So anyway, that's a technique you can use. Another thing you can do besides that's very similar is to go into the so make the selection of the object, and you could use Refine Edge to do something similar. So you could go through and you can feather the edge of the selection. Actually, this probably works better with if you invert the selection and then go through and modify edge. So let's see, select, refine edge, and this is a kind of a visual way to see what's happening. So you can have it, so you can see that it's actually selecting. I'm increasing the radius of it, feathering. It's kind of a visual tool. I prefer to do it the other way, but newer users of Photoshop, this is actually something that's a more of a recent addition. So I can do that, and I can press delete to to erase that, and it does something similar to the technique that I showed you. Okay. The way that I did it before is more explicit. You actually know what's going on with the tool. But and again, the Refine Edge tool is something that's more recent, and it's nice because it's kind of a visual tool. So you can do that. as well. But again, I prefer the kind of invert, expand, feather, and then clear, and you can press like the delete key to clear as well. And I think that does a pretty good job. So anyway, that's the technique for knocking out a complex image using a channel mask. Okay, and anyway, I hope that was helpful. I'll see you guys in class on Tuesday.